What's up, Ephraim? It's your girl, Samar. What do y'all think about that intro? I like it. I like it, guys. We have evolved, right? We've come to a new understanding of who Israel is and how it pronounced words. Right, guys? I've been on this journey right with you. You understand what I'm saying? I've not gone nowhere. My understanding also has evolved. I'm not a good teacher if I'm not growing too, right, guys? You know, the daughters are supposed to dig you out from underneath this. And I think I know why. Because the daughters don't revere kings. I ain't got no man by choice. I ain't beat up in the face. You best believe that one, Ephraim. But I don't got no man by choice. I don't need one right now. I need to listen to mama. I've made that sacrifice on behalf of you guys. I go out every day and work. I don't wait for nobody to bring me nothing. As a matter of fact, more often than not, people are taking from me. Mama's going to deal with that too. Because if you don't believe I'm mama's daughter, don't worry about it. She going to show you. Let me tell you something. Any prophecy I've heard about a daughter of mama's said that there's a daughter that's going to go to the beginning of the book. Show me on this platform who else has gone to the beginning of the book, guys. And I don't say that to stroke my ego. Not at all. It's a big responsibility, and I take it serious. I say it to claim my position. Even if you don't see it, I do. I am Ephraim because I opened that book and I saw it. That it was her seed. I saw the Y-Death, guys. I discovered the serpent thanks to our mother, guys. I ain't never stopped giving her credit. Guess what, guys? I see something else. Yes, I do. I see a parallel, and I can't shake it. I have told you guys, and shout out to Thinker, shout out to my new subscribers too, Catherine, Jada, shout out to you guys, shout out to my old subscribers, Mimi, KG, we got Negrotones, we got, who else is out there? We got KG, Negrotones. Oh, Yolanda, shout out to you. You know what I mean, guys? Y'all are tuning in every week. Oh, Michael Brown. I knew it was somebody that was getting away from me. You guys tune in every week. You know what I'm saying? You guys have been here for a long time, and I appreciate you guys for being on this ride. All right, guys, you guys are woken up. You know who you are. We know that it's all about Ephraim, guys. But look, a big shout out to Chat GPT. You know, I wondered how I could make this work for me, right? And I'm an old head. I might not be older than everybody listening, right? But I'm going to be 47 next month. All right. My birthday is next month. Dead in the middle of it, I will be 47, guys. All right. So, figuring out how to make tech work for me is not something that I immediately embrace, right? But it's come in usefulness right now because we're dealing with all of these measurements and all of these structures that were built in Israel, right? And last week we talked about Hezekiah's tunnel, right? Which I say is the Keystone Pipeline. All right, guys, you do what you want with it. But it contained the Gihon, which is the spring, which we're going to talk about those spring towers, those pyramids, right, y'all? I showed y'all the spring towers. Anyway, that was last week. I needed to find a tunnel that had been expanded on by 27 feet. So I went ahead and just typed that into Chat GPT. What structures in America, are 27 feet of thickness? You know what I'm saying? And so that's how we got to that information last week. But this week, I ran across a passage that asked us something very specific. But this week, I wanted to put in, why does the Civil War of America resemble the Civil War of Israel? It might not to you guys, okay? But it damn sure does to me, okay? I mean, and now you may say, Samar, what are you talking about? This is very far-fetched. But shout out to my people who know that the timeline was messed with. All right, guys, there's people that say that one was added. You know what I mean? There are a boatload of theories. You can do your own research on that. I do believe in that. Okay, but if you need help arriving to that as an understanding, do a YouTube search. You know what I mean? Shout out to the content makers who are bringing that out. But for obvious reasons, right? The Civil War of America is the division of the North and the Southern kingdoms, right? Of America, the division of the South and the North, right? Well, the division of Israel is the division of the Southern and Northern kingdoms too. What do you know? Right? That's the first obvious reason, guys, for me, anyway. But not only that, you have in the Civil War era of, quote, America, this expansion, you know what I'm saying, of structures and lands, and it sounds just like what was going on in Israel. So I put in this for Chat GPT to check it out for me, right? And I'm going to read this before we get started with today's focus. All right, guys? So just to bring y'all up to speed, why does Samar say this? Well, let's go to Chat GPT and see why Shamar says this. All right, why does the Civil War of America resemble the Civil War of Israel? The American Civil War from 1861 through 1865 and the Israeli Civil War. Now, see, they're going to bring in a more modern Civil War, right? But we're talking about the division of when David was, in fact, king. But we'll keep on going, right? Don't worry about what they're saying up there. Division within a single nation. In both cases, the conflict stemmed from deep division within an entity that was once unified. In the American Civil War, the divide was between the northern states, which is the Union, and the southern states, the Confederacy. Well, guys, y'all know David is crowned in Hebron, which translates to Chevron, which also means Confederacy, right? That's another obvious link. In the case of Israel, there was a division between these folks and these folks, they're going to say, right? All right. Ideological differences. Both wars were driven by profound ideological differences. In the American Civil War, these were largely centered around slavery, economic systems, and governance. The South sought to preserve slavery, right, and maintain an agrarian-based economy, right, agriculture, right? Ain't that what we do here? While the North, which had abolished slavery, fought to preserve the Union, anti-slavery, right? Of course, and I showed you how Solomon was the first to enslave, and he enslaved the house of Israel, the northern kingdoms. He didn't enslave Judah. He enslaved Israel, Ephraim. In Israel, look, last week, you see the guy coming out from the fields. What I told y'all not paying attention. And he was an Ephraimite. In Israel, the ideological differences were primarily over the question of national self-determination. Israel wanted to govern its own self. Israel didn't need a king. All right, let's keep going. Ethnic and religious tensions. Both conflicts involve ethnic or racial divisions. The American Civil War had the issue of slavery at its heart, right? In Israel, the divide was primarily between these two different identities, okay? But I wanted the war between David, the Antiquity War. This one brought up the more modern war, right? But it's still the same principle, guys. So just follow along. Involvement of external forces. Now this was important. We got to go back to ancient Israel. Hold on, because this is going to look different. This is going to tell you that it was the ancient. Let's put ancient civil war of Israel. Okay, because I want it to show that it was Assyria. Here we go. See, now here we go. This is going to look different, right? So make sure we do it this way. Why does the Civil War of America resemble the ancient Civil War of Israel? When comparing the American Civil War to the ancient Civil War of Israel, there are historical and thematic elements that can be drawn out. The ancient Civil War of Israel refers to the period of internal conflict and division among the tribes of Israel, especially during the period of the judges. All right, this is when they wanted kings, right? They didn't want judges. So let's keep going. The Northern Union states. See this? This is the one you want to do. The ancient Israelites also experienced division within their society, right here in the time of the judges. All right. Israel faced internal struggles, sometimes splitting into factions, right? Especially between the tribes. Later, after the reign of King Solomon, the kingdom split into the northern kingdom of Israel, with its capital in, they're going to say Samaria. Remember last week I showed you guys Tirzah. It just kept flipping around. In the southern kingdom of Judah, with its capital in where? Jerusalem. Ain't no Israelites in Jerusalem, but you could damn sure find a Judahite, can't we? Can't we, frontline? All right, pay attention to the moving pieces. All right. The division also often led to wars between the kingdoms, okay? So you're going to have tribal and regional identity. The tribes of Israel, right, had a strong regional and tribal identity, right? Solomon's reign, after King Solomon's reign, the tribes of the northern included Ephraim and Manasseh. What I told you was up there. Told you about that 10 tribes is a misnomer. Go back and look at my episode, guys. The math ain't mathin'. In the South, there were definitely 5 tribes, which kind of remind me of those 5 civilized tribes, but I have not made that connection yet. So I'm just fleshing out ideas that come to my mind, guys, okay? This is how the magic gets made. It starts with an idea. The division right here was not just political, but also deeply rooted in tribal and regional loyalties, okay? It was who you was going to be loyal to. All right, remember what Joshua said, me and my house are serving who? The Creator. What you do after I give you this knowledge, that's on you. The kingdom of Israel in the north felt distinct and sometimes antagonistic to the southern kingdom of Judah. Yeah, it threatened your existence because you're not Israel. But you damn sure gonna step in and act like you're Israel when it's convenient. All right. And then they're going to make this comparison with religion, guys. Y'all got to get into it. Leadership struggles. Oh, let's read this one. Leadership struggles were central to the conflict, especially the rivalry between Abraham Lincoln and the leadership of the Confederacy. With different visions for the nation's future, the Southern states under President Jefferson Davis sought independence, while Lincoln fought to preserve the Union. Remember, Jefferson Davis. I already did the research on that name, guys, and I showed you. Davis is linked to the word David. All right, guys, a son of David, beloved of David. Let's keep going. There were leadership struggles in ancient Israel, right? King Saul's reign was marked by conflict with David. So is Saul supposed to... I ain't going to get into that, guys. Civil strife, internal warfares, post-war reconstruction. I want to talk about this. After the war, the United States faced monumental task of rebuilding the nation and reconciling the divided states. The period of Reconstruction sought to reintegrate the southern states back into the Union. Ancient Israel. Following periods of civil war, Israel also faced the challenges of rebuilding. What I told y'all, guys. What I told you, it was going to be a lot of building going on, right? That's how you identify Israel, all right? For example, after the division between Israel and who? Judah, two separate beings, guys. Israel and Judah. They're showing you. Israel and Judah. There were attempts at reconciling, such as when King Hezekiah of Judah sought to unite the tribes against external threat. However, the kingdoms often remained separate, and tension continued for centuries. Okay. It says both the American Civil War and the ancient civil wars of Israel reflect internal divisions that were driven by a mix of political, ideological, and cultural forces. In both cases, leadership struggles, religion, and regional identities, and the question of unity versus division played significant roles. All right. And like Samar taught you, Israel is conquered by Assyria. Judah is taken by Babylon. And Judah is captured versus conquered, which is what happened to Israel, right, guys? So, fast forward, we got another question for ChatGPT. What American structure is renovated from 15 acres to 37 acres? Why did Samara ask ChatGPT that question, right, guys? I'll tell you why. Because we're going to see in the Torah, just like we did last week, how there was that clue that there was a structure that was 27 feet thick that Hezekiah built. Well, there's a clue in the Torah this week again about something being renovated from 15 acres to 37 acres. So I wanted to see if I was going to, in fact, find something that matched that description. And I did, guys. We did. We don't be playing no games over here on the front line, guys. We do extensive research. Check this out. Let's go to this folder. The Milo. The Dome Capital. All right, what else we got in here? Let's go back. We got the Dome Capital and Capitol Hill. All right. Now let's go to this folder right here, guys, real quick. I'm going to try not to hold y'all too long, but there is a lot of content that we got to unpack. All right, guys. The city of David. Remember, it's linked to Jerusalem. Because of Jerusalem's neutral location, it was a capital acceptable to both David's own tribe of Judah, David's own tribe, as well as to the tribes of the north. The city became David's and his descendants' personal property, called the city of David, the royal seat of the Davidic dynasty. David brought the ark from Kirath Jearim to Jerusalem, which established as the major worship center for all Israel. David, I done told your crunchy ass, you can't tell us where to worship. You ain't Israel, you are Judah. All right, but you can't help but to throw your weight around because you think you king, huh? Over the nation of Israel. So this is how David gets established and trumped up, because you put David over you. Go ahead and do it. I'm not putting David over me. I don't give a damn about David. My Creator's over me. David bought the ark from there. It says David built his own palace there, and towards the end of the reign, purchased the threshing floor, right? Now let's go. The 4th year of Solomon's reign, he began building the temple. So people keep building stuff. What do you think? I'm joking? I'm not joking. They keep building stuff. A task that took 7 years. The exact location of the temple is not known. They don't know where this thing is at. So they say, we know where it's at. I'm going to find it. Although many researchers place it in the immediate vicinity of the existing Muslim shrine called the Dome of the Rock. We're going to talk about that dome, guys. Okay, all of these are clues. All right, the temple, the dome. Okay. To the south of the temple, but north of the ancient core of Jerusalem, Solomon built his own palace and the palace of Lebanon. It is possible that the royal Acropolis, which means a high up city, guys, a city that's high up, guys, we're going to cover all of this. A fortified part of ancient Greece, guys, a citadel, okay? See what I'm saying? It says in early times it was called the Milo, the terraces, but later came to be known as the Ophel. Solomon strengthened the wall of Jerusalem and included the Milo, the Ophel, as well as the temple area within the confines of the wall. Thus, the walled city expanded from 15 acres to 37 acres. Just hold on to that, guys. Remember, we started out asking ChatGPT about this, right? Let's look up what Milo means. Filled. A storage facility. But Samar don't know what she's talking about, right? Filled with what? What storage facility is this? There are 1 or 2 Milos in the Bible, not counting Beth Milo mentioned in Judges. And Beth is going to link that to the daughters. Milo is an actual name. Its consistency preceded by the definite article meaning Milo, which suggests that Milo is not a name but a regular word. The article is used in Hebrew to distinguish one thing from the other that we're talking about, right? But the Milo we'll discuss below appears to have been unique. Another reason why the article precedes this word may be to indicate that the Milo was executing the actions represented by the verb, the word Milo, okay? It says the first Milo we hear of appears to be either a man-made construction or a natural rock formation on the slopes of Mount Zion. When David captured the stronghold and associated village of Zion from the Jebusites, right? We talked about that last week, and moved in, he expanded the city of Jerusalem towards building from the Milo onward. So these guys are just, listen, understand me. Hezekiah is going to go down as the greatest one to have added on to this, but this thing has been built on by different factions of the southern kingdom, okay? It says, but when Solomon began his building project that included the temple and the royal palaces, he was also said to have built the Milo. Perhaps he fortified the Milo that David built. Perhaps he built a whole other Milo. I tend to believe he built another Milo. These men wanted their own glory. So Solomon wasn't going to go in there and improve on something his father did. He was going to do something completely different. And he had the money and the means to do it. Remember that. He's the richest king. He is crowned in Gihon, the gusher. His forehead is anointed like with oil. Like that movie, guys, the Mad Max movie, right? His head is anointed with oil. He has the means to build his own. He definitely built his own. That's how I feel about it. Can I prove it? No. But it's been very hard for me to be wrong, right, guys? Mama been leading us, so I believe Mama. Let's keep going. Uh, it says, let's go right here. Perhaps the Milo of Solomon was applied back to the story of David as a reference. Still, Solomon's construction work pertaining to the Milo is of crucial importance in the story of Israel. No, it's of crucial importance. Well, it will tell how Israel was more than likely enslaved to build this, but this is linked to Judah. It's in Jerusalem, right? They're going to try to confuse you like they like to do and attach these parasites to our inheritance, but they got their own inheritance, and it's in Jerusalem. Let's go right here. It says in 1 Kings, right here, 11:27, we learn that Jeroboam, son of Nebat, began the rebellion that resulted in the breach between Judah and the northern kingdom of Israel, because Solomon was building the Milo. King Joash of Judah was killed in or near his house in Milo. It says no definite article. Right? And after the Assyrian invasion, King Hezekiah bravely repaired the wall of Jerusalem and the Milo in the city of David. Why the construction work on the Milo was so vexing to Jeroboam that he tore the United Kingdom apart and subsequently ended Israel's golden age may not be immediately clear. Jeroboam was chief of the forced labor coming from where? Ephraim and Manasseh. See, when I tell y'all, when I tell y'all these things, I understand everybody else screaming the opposite. They telling you about Solomon and knights, and he had gold, and he had the riches. And how did he get it? Because he enslaved Israel. He enslaved Israel. More importantly, Ephraim and Manasseh. See, not many articles going to tell you this, that the house of Joseph is Israel. The house of Joseph is who was enslaved. It wasn't no Judahites. Wasn't no soft hand, wayward cousin of ours. It was us. And although Jeroboam was vexed, it was the Creator who gave him the northern kingdom. It therefore appears that not solely Solomon's many wives and their idols led to the undoing of the United Kingdom, but also Solomon's work on the mysterious Milo. Etymology of the name Milo relates to the cycle of harvest, storage, and redistribution. Derivative forms emphasize the various stages, the severing of something from its natural origin. That was you, Israel. Subsequent storage in dedicated facilities, or the redistribution of overflowing from those facilities. You guys need to go back and read this. This is a very long one concerning the Milo. The verb male means to be full. Look at that. Let's get down to here. For a meaning of the name Milo, the NOBSE Study Bible Name List reads: terrace, elevation. Jones Dictionary of Old Testament proper names has rampart, a defensive wall, a castle. For the ramparts, what? Were so gallantly, what? Y'all know y'all heard that word before. But note that these are all interpretations and not translations. All right. The form of the word Milo looks like an absolute infinitive or a passive particle, and it means filled, filling, or setting up. The Milo was not a landfill, but a storage facility, since it's preceded by the definite article, and perhaps also contained lodging quarters. So it had places to sleep, right? It was a heavily fortified general storage complex, the storage complex of the city. It probably contained food, perhaps even water, and possibly armor and a panic room. Sound familiar? All right. It says it also explains Jeroboam's anger, right? Because they took away the housing from the women when he built this. This was the women's territory. All right. This was promised to them. I told you the women had land, guys. So this is what happened. The Milo was built over the women's territory, the northern kingdom of the women's territory. Watch this. It also explained Jeroboam's anger from the account of Solomon's life. It's obvious that the revered peacekeeping king was in fact a relentless megalomaniac. He gathered more wealth. They're talking about Solomon. They're talking about Solomon. Oh, but listen to everybody on this platform. He is the richest king. We should be revering him, blah, blah, blah. No, it says he was a megalomaniac. He gathered more wealth and women than anyone could ever need. All right, but we supposed to live frugally, but this man is storing up wealth and women. This king, that's all he was focused on. Than anyone would ever need, but those treasures and women needed housing. Jeroboam saw the Milo expand and expand without any good reason. So Solomon built all the storage cities which Solomon had, even the cities for his chariots, and the cities for his horsemen, and all that it pleased Solomon to build in Jerusalem, in Lebanon, and all the land under his rule. Quick little fact, guys, Lebanon is linked to the word white and whiteness. You do what you want with that. Solomon's empire enjoyed an annual revenue of, look at this insane amount of money right here, guys. What is that, $1 trillion? $4 trillion in today's money? And Solomon amassed 1,400 chariots, 12,000 horsemen, which he stored in dedicated cities with him in Jerusalem. He had acquired 700 wives, 300 concubines, which needed an untold number of servants and produced an untold number of offspring. Yeah, bunch of wayward cousins came out of this one. And they required their own temples, which Solomon gladly provided for. The Lord became angry because Solomon accommodated and honored the idols of his wives. Okay? What nobility comes from this? But Jeroboam became angry because he and his men had to construct all this foolishness. This suffering must have been horrendous. So Israel is building all of this for Solomon and his wives. These foreign women, these Barbies, huh? When Solomon died, Jeroboam addressed the new king, Rehoboam, and said, "Your father made our yoke hard. Now therefore lighten the hard service of your father and his heavy yoke which he put on us, and we'll serve you." Rehoboam's response was as ridiculous as celebrated. Wise father's megalomania. It says, let me go over that. Sorry, Rehoboam's response was as ridiculous as his celebrated wise. Look how they got it in parentheses. They telling you it wasn't nothing wise about Solomon. It was just celebrated as his father's megalomania. He says, "I will add to your yoke." But this is the Davidic kings y'all honor, right? Yeah, y'all waiting on him. "My father disciplined you with whips. I'll discipline you with scorpions." All right? The kingdom was lost because the proverbial wise king used his wisdom to write pretty poetry for the aristocracy, right? And they do it now. Rap songs, y'all still doing it. Y'all don't even realize where it comes from. It's pretty poetry. That's it. And adorn wealthy women. And the poor Slavs on the work floor were footing the bill. To them, Israel had never escaped from Egypt. They had merely swapped one arrogant king for the next. You see what they said happened to you, right? Right, Ephraim? Much later, another king would arise who would become compared with King Solomon. Who was it? Look who arises. Y'all know who arises right there from the Davidic line. Judah wrote about that. Let's go. How are ancient American temples similar to the Temple of Solomon? Let's go down here. The Temple of Solomon was built on a platform on a what? A hill. Inside were distinct rooms of different sacredness. Outside the building itself was a courtyard or plaza surrounded by a wall. There goes that wall again. Sacrifices were made in that space, atop altars of stepped or terraced forms. The temple building was oriented so that the rising of the sun on the equinoctial day, either March 21st or September 21st, sent the earliest rays, considering the glory of the Lord, to shine through the temple doors, which were open for the occasion. For the Holy of Holies, huh? But Jerusalem is not the Holy of Holies. I done told y'all that. It says, while there was some variation between temple designs in the New World, this same pattern was typical of many ancient Mesoamerican temples, many of which date to the Book of Mormon times. All right, so the Mormons are going to tell you that they done found Solomon's temples here. What is Shamar telling you guys? Mesoamerican temples, many of which date back to the Book of Mormon times. Mesoamerican temples were often built on tall platforms or hills, occasionally the high places, right? Occasionally they would be built on top of pyramids to serve as an artificial hill, setting it apart from the city to form exclusively religious centers that give the buildings intended for worship an importance that the metropolis limits to certain areas. Some Mesoamerican temples also include two non-structural pillars at the entrance to the temple precinct, which was a prominent feature of the entrance to Solomon's temple. Quick fact, one of them is named Boaz. I cannot remember the name of the other temple guys, but all of this is linked to the Freemasonry, right? The builders. Furthermore, Mesoamerican temples contained a walled courtyard for sacrifices, as well as inner rooms accessible for the priests. Rooms were typically covered with curtains and were accessible only by the Maya rulers. Remember, Mayan is a Hebrew word linked to the word spring, which we link to the oil well, right, guys? It says at Mesoamerican temples, kings would be coronated. We do that right now. What's going to happen on January 21st? We see an enthronement ceremony wherein the ruler sits upon a wooden tower or scaffold to receive the emblems of rulership. We see that. We're going to see it on the 21st. A similar coronation at a temple is recorded in the book of Messiah. At this coronation, King Benjamin addresses his people from a tower constructed for the event and declares his son Mosiah to be a king and ruler over all. All right, so they're doing the comparison that some of these Mesoamerican, quote, temples kind of relate to these things that we don't see anymore, like this lost monument. Have archaeological, let's look at this, the Milo, Jerusalem's lost monument. Yeah, they're going to look in the wrong place. They told us they didn't know where this was, guys. Have archaeologists, struggling with that, been looking in the wrong place for the Milo, one of Jerusalem's most important and ancient biblical monuments. We believe the Milo, a structure that the Bible lists alongside the temple of this individual and the royal palaces of David and Solomon, was not a constructed foundation or massive retaining wall, as many scholars have argued, but rather a monumental fortification that guarded the city's most precious resource, oil. They're going to say water, right? But we know it's oil. Indeed, the biblical writers credit some of Judah's most famous kings. Of course, they're going to glorify Judah because Judah's writing it. Included David, Solomon, and Hezekiah with building and renovating the Milo. It was also the setting of the assassination of King Joash of Judah. But what exactly was the Milo and where was it located? The Bible gives us some important clues. First, it was significant, imposing, and apparently an enclosed royal structure, located along the periphery of the city of David, that was somehow associated but distinct from Jerusalem's fortification. See, it's not the same place that David did. I told y'all. Second, though it may have already existed prior to Jerusalem becoming the capital of the Judahite kingdom, go on ahead and be in Jerusalem. Wayward cousins, here's your inheritance. The Milo was periodically repaired and renovated by various kings of Judah, though the late 8th century, after which it appears to have gone out of use. That's what they're going to say. Third, the monument was closely related to the meaning and significance of its somewhat unusual name, the Milo. Milo comes from the Hebrew word mil, which means to fill. Even before modern times, interpreters understood that the Milo had something to do with a filling. As such, some suggest that the Milo was a large religious area full of people or an ancient meeting hall filled with crowds. Neither view provided correct, but the growth of modern archaeology focused attention on other types of filling that may have been designated by the term Milo. Starting in the 20th century, scholars began to realize the city of David was the ancient core of Canaanite and Judahite Jerusalem. See, it belongs to the Judahites. They ain't telling you it belonged to no Israelites because they know that ain't no Israelites in Jerusalem. This author know it. Do you, Ephraim? Or are you running around screaming Judah like the other assholes? Get caught up. The Judahites right here are in Jerusalem. Although not as elevated as as defensible as Jerusalem's western hill, the city of David possessed a perennial Gihon spring. What I told you guys. Perennial, all years flowing. In the search for the biblical Milo, the scholars begin to assume that the filling had something to do with the stone or earthen fills. What I told y'all, the Keystone Pipeline, guys, that supported the walls and fortification of the city. Buttressing their claims, they argue the term is similarly used in Assyrian, where it can be referred to as filled depression or the construction of a terrace wall. All right, guys, remember what that definition gave us, terrace, a bunch of things when we looked up the Milo. Some scholars begin to connect the Milo with specific segments of Jerusalem's fortification. Okay, they did a BS. They tried to check into that in the 1960s, but we know it's not over there. It's over here. In the aftermath of the Six-Day War, portions of the stepped stone. Yeah, that's BS because they're looking over there, right? But we know it's over here. Yet the assumption that the Milo had something to do with the stone and soil filling of fortifications leaves a dirty taste in one's mouth. Indeed, if one searches the Hebrew Bible for things that are filled, there are numerous examples of people filling things with water or other liquids. You know what this reminds me of? When Abraham's stuff, those wells got filled with trash. Leo. Leo caught a mouse, guys. That was the funniest thing I ever seen. All right, where was I? Sorry, guys. All right, so numerous examples of things being filled. All right, it says filled with soil, perhaps more important. Why would biblical Jerusalemites get excited about one of their great kings building a retaining wall? Good question. Why would they get excited about just a regular old wall? It had to have been something more. Even one as nice as a stepstone structure. Why would a king brag about constructing something that would have been buried and covered with vegetation or even other buildings? So, what got buried? That tunnel, guys. He's bragging about the tunnel because the tunnel is the Keystone Pipeline. This is going to lead to massive riches for them. It says, we believe it is much more likely that the Milo relates to filling with water or oil, right, guys? Which in turn supports a new and more plausible identification for the monument. In Akkadian, the term malu usually refers to fillings, containers, or canals with water. In Ugaritic, the same term is used, the Epic of Kurta, when women were filling jars from the spring, right, guys? Similarly, when Rebecca meets Abraham's servant at the well, what I told y'all, the women of Israel used to be at this well, okay? The 7 ewes, right, guys, that Abraham left as witnesses. Rebecca is a ewe. She's a ewe lamb, right? She's at the stream. It says, the Bible says she went down to the spring and filled her jars. Finally, the Song of Songs, his eyes are like doves beside streams of water, bathed in milk, sitting beside a pool full of water. If we take these examples together, it seems probable that the biblical Milo refers to a fortified location within the city of David, where the inhabitants of Jerusalem filled their water containers. Fresh spring water was one of the most important assets for any city, right, guys? They needed this to help run their lamps, things like that, but they were not using it to power their cars. But did Iron Age Jerusalem have such a location for safely securing water? Yeah, they did. Shamar showed you guys. Shamar. I'm still going by Shamar, right? All right, so around a decade after the Spring Tower discoveries, guys, we're gonna get into those Spring Towers. Did I not tell you those are the pyramids, guys? The Spring Towers, the bursting forth, right, guys? They were all done here. It says this around a decade after the Spring Tower discovery, some of the tower's lower courses, along with abundant evidence for building activities in the 9th and 8th century. It was during Yoash, guys, okay? Spring Towers, here they go again, guys. These are these oil wells, guys, was either built in the Middle Bronze Age and then rebuilt during the 9th century. All right, age to the strength, the spring's ancient fortifications. In any event, it appears that the Gihon Spring fortification system was built and rebuilt over the course of several centuries until the construction of Hezekiah's tunnel. What I told you guys. The Spring Tower and its accompanying fortifications, all right? The biblical writers, let's go here real quick. We're going to get out of this one, all right, guys? The biblical writers would not have blushed in putting the Spring Tower, understood as the Milo, in the same list as the Temple of Yahoo and the Palace of King Solomon. The complicated archaeology of the Gihon's fortification indicates there was need to regularly repair the walls that gave access to and protected the oil supply. All right. The construction of the Spring Tower as enclosed buildings in the 9th century, fits nicely with the house of Milo that's mentioned in the setting for the assassination of Joash. During this period, Jerusalem was visited by several outside threats, most notably King Hazael, right there. Finally, there's a connection between the Gihon Springs and the filling of the Milo, right? From the time of the Canaanites, Jerusalem's to the construction of who? Hezekiah's temple. Yeah, so go back and read this article, guys, about how the kings of Judah kept expanding on these areas. All right. Jerusalem's most iconic setting. Okay, it's all going to lead back to David, Solomon, Hezekiah, all of these Davidic kings. According to the Bible, the Milo was one of Jerusalem's most recognizable monuments for most of the last 2 centuries. Explorers and archaeologists have been searching for it. Well, I don't know why they keep searching for it. Samar has found it. Okay. Just by going by their description. Okay. Check this out. The National Mall. They're going to improve on it for America's 250th birthday. The National Mall is set for big changes in preparation for an influx. Here's a look at the time of the projects, totaling a $500 million ticket, guys. They're going to do this in 2026. All right. What did I say? They keep repairing and building on. They have to, because they know it's not structurally sound. Every so often, you got to come back and do some repairs to this thing. That's why they built that into the budget. The National Park Service and Trust for the National Mall are set to break ground this fall. Oh, how did we get here, guys? Let me go back to this. Remember, Solomon improved on it from 15 acres to 37 acres, guys. When I asked ChatGPT about that here in America, they bring me to the National Mall. The National Mall in Washington, D.C. is an example of a major American structure that underwent expansion in terms of land area. Originally, the National Mall consisted of around 15 acres, but has since been expanded to approximately 37. This expansion took place over several years, particularly in the early mid-20th century, as additional monuments, memorials, and museums were added to the space. The mall now spans over 2 miles in length, most of some of the most iconic landmarks in the United States, including the Lincoln Memorial, the Washington Memorial, and the U.S. Capitol, are right here, guys. This is how we got to the National Mall, right? I forgot to bring that back on in there. U.S. Capitol buildings. Remember, we read that there was a domed rock, right, guys, near Jerusalem. The United States Capitol building is located in Washington, D.C. on the National Mall. On a plateau. It's raised up, 88 feet above the level of the Potomac. All right. At the U.S. Capitol, the Senate, the House of the Representatives come together to discuss, debate, and deliberate national policy. All right, over 1.5 million square feet and over 600 rooms. It's crowned by a magnificent white dome. Remember, Jerusalem had that dome, right, guys? And a Milo. Well, it looks like we're getting to some of that. The U.S. Capitol is among the most architecturally impressive and symbolically important buildings in the world. It holds meetings of chamber, You got 5 levels within it. Hall of columns. Got a crypt and a rotunda, So, like I told y'all, Solomon just kept building, right? History of the Capitol Hill. The U.S. Capitol Hill was built atop Jenkins Hill, now often referred to as Capitol hill. Where was Solomon building, guys? On a hilled area, right? Check it out, guys. These are not just coincidences. These were built during the Civil War era time, guys, supposedly, right? Or added on, or they built facades over what was already here. It says here, we have turned away from God. Only two nations. I'm not going to read that first paragraph, guys, because it might get me kicked out of here. Right? We don't want to say certain words. I like, you know. But I want to bring this article in because they made a connection too. Remember how we started with those parallels, guys, and we talked about the Civil War parallels with the northern and southern king parallels of Israel, that division? Check this out. Only two nations in the history of the world were dedicated to God: ancient Israel and America. 2,500 years ago, King Solomon dedicated Israel's holy temple to God. On April 30th, George Washington and his cabinet dedicate America to God in a little church that still stands at Ground Zero. The covenant, let's close this out. The covenant of both nations had a condition. If they honored God, the nation would be blessed. If they turned away from him, the blessing would be removed. So y'all think this is just a parallel too, huh? Come on, man. Gradually, ancient Israel turned away from their covenant, finally driving God out of their land, bringing in idols to fill the void. They exchanged him for false gods of sensuality and self-interest, even offering their children on altars of false gods. They gave their daughters away to husbands, didn't they? God tried to call them back through their warning. Finally, the protection was removed. Israel's arrogant response when its enemies finally destroyed the holy temple. Now, this is Judah's ignorant arrogance. It said, the bricks have fallen down, but we will rebuild with dressed stone. The fig trees have been felled, but we will replace them with cedars. No repentance for their sins. Right. They just got more strong-willed, guys. And this is all of this building they were doing. History is repeating itself in America, right? Laws have been trampled, right? We don't rest the land. Morality has been deteriorated to the point where tens of millions of unborn children have been sacrificed. All right, so they're going to make all of these parallels of their own with these different scenarios, but I just brought that in, guys, to show y'all something here. These parallels that we see when it comes specifically to this place here and all of this building that was taking place. All of this building in the city of David, in the city of Jerusalem, guys. I'm going to just say it out loud. It's Jerusalem, Washington, guys. These buildings are overlapping, guys. Is it? And where's that dome? It was the Dome of the Rock. See, guys? And here we got a dome. Expanded from 15 acres to 37. There's our clue. That's how we got from there to here. Much love to you guys. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys next week. It's your girl Samar. Take care.